I tried to read the names on the signpost, but we were travelling too quickly for me to read them, so I made a few notes of the first letters that I could see and would ask Dad, who'd probably be able to tell me. I could draw a map then and put all the names in. The fields were green to start with. Some had cows in them who were all lying down, looking very contented. Others had corn that looked like it would soon be ready for harvesting, but so shortly we came to the moors. I'd never seen these before, and the vastness and the colour of the heather was beautiful. There were rocky outcrops and streams. On one hillside the water was flowing down a gully like a waterfall. I thought how wonderful it would be to be able to walk across them and play in those rocky streams. Charlie would love it. Mrs. Bradshaw pointed out how stunted some of the trees were, and how they all leaned in a certain direction. She said that they were stunted due to the severe weather and the poor soil, and their lean was because of the prevailing winds. I drew a little sketch of a tree that seemed to be growing out of a rock to remind me. Henrietta didn't seem to be taking much interest. I asked her why she hadn't brought a notebook. She said that she'd been there before with her family, and anyway she thought there's no point of us both doing it, and she could copy mine. She seemed to be uncomfortable in her tight jumper and was continually pulling at it. I couldn't understand why she wore it. It was far too small, and probably one that she'd had years ago. I was too excited to bother with her. Mrs. Williams said that the journey would take 2.5 hours, but it seemed no time at all before we were climbing a steep hill, and then I saw it. "Look, the sea!" Lots of the girls seated on the other side of the bus left their seats before they had time to cross over. Mrs. Bradshaw shouted, "Sit down! You'll have plenty of time to see the sea when we get there." "Oh, Henrietta, isn't it exciting? I want to paddle and explore." Not only didn't Henrietta seem the least bit excited, but didn't answer either. We crawled up the hill with the bus jerking as the driver changed the gears. It seemed to be going slower and slower, and I was afraid that it wouldn't get to the top. But it did, and then we went down the steepest hill I'd ever seen. I lost sight of the sea as we descended into the town of Whitby. When the bus stopped, we got up from our seats, but Miss Bradshaw stopped us. "Sit down! We can't all go rushing about willy-nilly. There's a planned itinerary." She uses all these big words, and she then listed what that would be. "We will all leave here and firstly go to the museum. Then we'll go to the exhibition of the photographs of a man called Frank-Sutcliffe. He spent his whole life photographing Whitby in the late 19th century. You will be able to compare life as it was then to the present day, and I want you to choose one photograph that appeals to you. We will be discussing your choice at school next week." Henrietta got up from her seat. "Sit down, I'm not finished yet. Secondly, we'll all go on foot to one or two sites that I know are in the photographs, and I would remind you again that you're representing your school, and I expect you to behave accordingly. Miss Williams will lead the way, and I'll be at the rear. Take your notebooks and your bags with you. It's now nearly 11 o'clock. If we are able to get round quickly and orderly enough, we should have some free time to spend on the beach, but it depends on you. The bus will leave at 3 o'clock. Miss Williams opened the bus door and stepped down onto the pavement. We all followed. Mrs. Bradshaw told us to form up in twos. Miss Williams moved off and we marched behind her. The photographs were wonderful, all in sepia tones. There were many of the harbour and the ships, and lots of the fishermen and their boats, many of the farmers at work, and lots of the town and its peoples. I liked them all, but I was particularly drawn to one that showed the ruins of Whitby Abbey, and this was the one that I chose to remember. Lots of the girls seemed to be gathered around one showing naked boys playing in the river. It was called The Water Rats, and the writing underneath said that it was one of the most famous photographs. But I'm not sure that's why it appealed to them. There were postcards you could buy, and I would have liked one of the Abbey, but I needed my money for other things. We all left the museum and walked to the harbour. The scene was similar to his photos, but instead of sailing ships there were now steamships. The swing bridge looked the same, and it was disappointing that it wasn't raised. I suppose there aren't enough tall ships these days to need it. Henrietta didn't seem to be very excited and spent most of the time looking in the shop windows. We climbed a steep hill, and there to my joy we came upon the exact piece that Sutcliffe had taken the photograph of. Ruins of Whitby Abbey, as shown in the picture that I had chosen. The abbey is crumbling, and he had photographed a view of the church beyond, framed in a decaying archway. I stopped and drew a very quick outline in my book so that I could remember it. There's going to be so much to tell Mum and Dad and the children when I get home. We walked back down the hill through the town again to the bus. Mrs. Bradshaw and Miss Williams got onto the bus and told us to stay where we were, and in a few minutes Miss Williams stood at the open door of the bus, looking, I thought, rather like a Greek goddess in her long gold-coloured dress, about to deliver some declaration, which of course she did. "Thank you, girls. You've all behaved very well, and Mrs. Bradshaw and I have decided that you can be allowed to go to the beach on your own. It's now 1:10. The bus, as you know, will leave at 3 o'clock, so do make sure you keep an eye on the time. Your parents will be expecting you, so we must not be late. Stay in groups with your friends and don't wander too far away. I hope that you will bring back any items that you find of interest on the beach so that we can use them in our lessons next week. Off you go." Henry murmured, "About bloody time. Come on." We all walked off in groups as friends knotted together. Henrietta stood close to me, and we found ourselves on our own. "Shall we go with Althea? She doesn't seem to have many friends." "No, we don't want her. I've got something exciting for you and me to do." "Well, we'll all be on the beach, and I want to paddle in the sea." "No, we won't. You and me are going to the fun fair. I know where it is, as I've been there before." I don't know why I agreed, but it did sound fun, and I expected that I could get my present there. I'd seen pictures of fairgrounds, but the reality was amazing. Although it was daylight, there were hundreds and hundreds of lights, all different colours and some flashing on and off. There were stalls where you could roll down pennies that won a prize if they landed on a numbered square. Rifle ranges where the prizes were lovely dolls and large woolly animals. Rows and rows of slot machines. Roundabouts with brightly coloured horses that had music that sounded as though it was from a barrel organ. The whole thing was a riot of colour and noise. Charlie and the boys would love it. Henrietta didn't give me a chance to look round and to take it all in, but grabbed my arm and said, "Come on, we'll go on the cakewalk." "What's a cakewalk?" "Come on, you'll see, it's great." "How much does it cost?" "I don't know, not much." It cost 2pence. I handed my 6pence to the man, and he gave me change from a leather bag fastened round his waist. The cakewalk turned out to be a kind of moving platform that shook you to bits. There were 2 handrails to hold on to as you tried to walk from one end to the other, and the thing violently shifted backwards and forwards. Everyone bumped into other, and we progressed as a drunken man might. Everyone was laughing, and it was fun. When I walked down the steps to the ground, it felt weird, as though the ground was moving. That was fun, but shall we go now? No, of course not. Henry turned and said, You see those two boys over there? They've been following us. Don't be silly, why should they? Well, come on then, let's go on the roundabout and I bet they'll come too. I would have liked to go on the roundabout, but I didn't want to spend any more money. It's all right for her, I bet her mother had given her lots, but she pushed me up onto the ride before I could resist. She chose a horse to ride and I took the one next to her. The roundabout started, slowly at first, and then increased its speed until the stalls and sideshows of the fairground flashed by in a blur. It was thrilling, and I hung on tight to the gold-coloured pole attached to the horse. A young man came to us, walking as a sailor might on a lurching ship, and not holding on to anything, and asked for our money. I had to let go of the pole to give him my twopence. I saw the two boys as we passed on one circuit. Next time round I saw one of them jump onto the moving ride, followed on the next circuit by the other one. They got onto two motorbikes behind us. The ride slowed down and we all got off. The bigger and older looking of the two boys said something to Henrietta and she laughed. The younger one stayed near me and said, "Hello, are you on holiday?" "No, just for the day, we're on a school trip." "Oh, that's nice. Do you want to go on anything else?" "No, I'm with Henrietta and we have to be going soon." "That's a pity, we could have had some fun." I didn't know what to say and turned to Henrietta for help, but she was walking away with the boy, holding his hand. I was frightened. I only had twopence left. I didn't really know where I was. I had to get back to the bus, and although the boy looked nice enough, I assumed that he and his friends spent all their time picking up girls. I felt tears coming into my eyes and I didn't know what to say or do. I won't forgive Henrietta for this. I wanted to get my present. I wanted to paddle in the sea, and she spoiled it all for her own selfish reasons. Hey, come on, no need to be upset. I didn't mean any harm. Maybe not, but I have to get back to my bus or my friends on the beach. That's not a problem. I'll take you. Where's your bus? Outside the town hall. Well, that's not too far away and the beach is near there, so we can do both if you want to. Come on, cheer up. I didn't think that I had any options, but I knew that I would run if he tried to take me on any route other than by the main streets and find a policeman to ask the way. If Miss Williams found out that I was on my own, she'd be very cross indeed. And what if she told my mother? We walked along the main road that I remembered from the morning's trip. He talked about the town and how he had lived there all his life and how he would like to visit a foreign country one day. I told him about my brothers and sisters, and he said that he envied me as he was an only child. He offered to carry my bag, and it was only then that I realised that I hadn't eaten my sandwiches. We were passing some beautiful laid-out gardens. There were seats, and I told him about not having had any dinner and asked if we could stop. I chose a seat so as to be next to one on which an elderly couple was sitting. He sat near me, but not close to me, with his hands between his knees, and watched the sparrow hopping around our feet. He seemed quite shy and not what I had expected. "My name's Richard. What's yours?" "Thelma." I unwrapped my sandwiches and offered him one. I felt more at ease now and looked at him more closely as he turned towards me. His face was tanned, no doubt through living by the sea all his life. He had freckles on his forehead and nose. His blue eyes were set quite wide apart. His hair was light-coloured and looked bleached by the sun. He reached for the sandwich and then quickly withdrew his hand. "No, thanks, it's all right. You haven't had any dinner, and I bet you're starving." "No, I'm not. Please have one. They're dripping sandwiches. My mum made the bread herself. Sounds scrumptious. Okay then, thank you. Mum says we should all eat lots of fat. Keeps you warm in the winter. Your mum sounds very nice. My mum says I could do with some more fat on me, but she says I'm having my growing spurt, whatever that means, and that I'll broaden out in a few more years. I told him about the present that I wanted to buy and how I longed to paddle in the sea just once before I went home. That's not a problem. I know a shop where you can get it. What time does your bus leave? 3 o'clock. He looked at his wristwatch. It's 2:15 now. Come on, if we hurry we can do both. We ran from the garden. I didn't realise that we were hand in hand, but somehow it felt natural and right.